Of course, it is Budget Boxing Day, the morning after, the night before. The old Treasury hangover. Yes, the reactions to last night's federal budget are in, and the overall response, no notes. Well, some notes. Many, many notes.
This is a budget for the here and now, and it's a budget for the decades to come.
Last night was all about bringing down the cost of living, battling inflation and trying to keep interest rates low. And interest rates from the public certainly seemed pretty low.
The budget? No, I've never even heard of it.
Didn't watch it, no. Too busy. No.
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 Boring. At least until the Treasurer dropped this handy bonus, a $300 electricity bill rebate for every household.
Sounds good.
I think it's a little bit token.
It's proposing to put a Band-Aid on a bullet wound.
I don't understand why you and I on high incomes need to get that assistance.
An increase to rent assistance
By a further 10%.
was described as welcome, but not going nearly far enough.
We did not get the solutions that were the right ones for the scale of the challenges that we face.
Likewise, the $500 million for a new digital platform to address mental health needs.
It's a much bigger priority than almost anything else in health at the moment.
And the almost $1 billion in financial and housing assistance for those leaving domestic violence situations.
If you want to do something about domestic violence, which, by the way, you have to start with that next generation down. They've done nothing about that. You are never going to break the cycle of domestic violence unless you put money into the next generation.
Then there was the $23 billion for the
Future Made in Australia.
designed to ramp up domestic manufacturing and put us on a path to net zero.
$5 billion for new climate spends, but $50 billion in fossil fuel subsidies. You can't have your foot on the accelerator and the brake at the same time.
Overall, voters gave it mixed reviews.
I really like the tax cut. I'm looking forward to that.
More needs to be done.
I would love if they stopped subsidising fossil fuels, and if they could give that money to our future, that would be great.
So as the verdicts continue to roll in, did the government get the balance right?
We invited the Shadow Treasurer and the Shadow Finance Minister on tonight, but they were not available. Stepping into the breach is Greens Senator Nick McKim. He's with us now. Senator, people are in a cost of living crisis. Inflation obviously is the problem there. The trick is that as a general rule, government spending adds to inflation. So does the government get any credit from you for trying to walk this very difficult line here?
Well, there's plenty you can do to reduce cost of living pressures without being inflationary. Like high rents are inflationary. You could freeze rent increases or put a cap on rent increases. And another way you can help people out who are really doing it tough without adding to inflation is to take away from people who've got a lot. So you can tax wealth or you can tax very high incomes, and you can give that money to people who haven't got enough, who need it the most. So we don't think the government has struck the right approach here, and the millions of Australians who are getting smashed by rents or mortgages or at supermarket checkouts, this isn't going to solve their problems.
Talk about helping people out though, Senator. I mean, the $300 going off your energy bill, surely that has to be welcome for a lot of Australians. Do you support that?
Oh, look, that'll absolutely be welcomed by a lot of people, and we understand that people want that kind of support. But ultimately, $300 a year off your energy bills is not going to touch the sides when in fact what we need is really strong action on rents, really strong action on food and grocery prices, a really strong action on transport costs, and we're getting none of that in this budget.
We may perhaps have stronger action, though, when it comes to combating climate change. $23 billion commitment to get us to net zero. I mean, it does feel a little bit ambitious considering Australia's resistance to getting off petrol in the past, but what do you make of that?
Well, this budget, the context for this budget is the climate collapsing around us, ecological systems crumbling, not to mention the cost of living pressures that we mentioned before. What we are seeing is a response where in this budget there is $50 billion to directly subsidise the burning of fossil fuels, and Labor being very clear, they want gas wound out well beyond 2050 when we're supposed to be net zero emissions. So ultimately, this is a budget that relies on gas and coal and fossil fuels, and that shouldn't be surprising because those corporations write their own tax laws under both Labor and Liberal governments and donate massively to both of those political parties.
All right, you have absolutely smashed it so far. Nick, it's time to be a bit more of a positive Pete. Was there anything in there you actually liked?
Well, look, what it is in general, this budget, is a business as usual approach that's actually either created or allowed all those problems I just went through to occur and doesn't do anything significant to stop them. So, of course, there are good things in this budget and we'll support where those good things are. But at the end of the day, we need strong, urgent action at the scale that is required to meet the great challenges facing Australia, our climate and nature, and we got none of that in this budget.
Just as a general question, why is it unreasonable to expect firm positions on policies that don't have full detail, but you do have very firm positions when it comes to criticising those policies that don't have a lot of detail? Like, why is that always the dynamic in politics?
I'll tell you what, I'm going to let Jim Chalmers spruik his budget. I'm here to tell you what should have been in there and what wasn't. That's my job.
Fair enough. We understand your job. We will speak to Jim Chalmers a bit later in the show. He can spruik away. In the meantime, thank you very much, Nick.
Thanks for having me, folks.